Hello fellow hunters, JBizHunts here with your Te Awaroa Himalayan Tahr Herd Management Grind Guide. Yeah, that's a mouthful, but trust me, it is worth it. The Himalayan Tahr is a unique Great One to grind for, especially since they don't have a drink zone time. Most Great One grinds revolve around hitting up their go-to watering holes, but not this one. Before being backfilled on Te Awaroa, the Himalayan Tahr could only be hunted on Sundar Patan. Now, with their addition to Te Awaroa, the grind game has changed. In this guide, I'll break down exactly why Te Awaroa is the best map for your Great One Tahr grind, plus I'll give you all the tips, tricks, and steps you need to get started. Let's dive in. Now, before you leave the comfort of your trophy lodge to hit the mountains of Te Awaroa, we must talk about your loadout. So, the number one item you are going to need is 16 tents. If you have the Tents and Tripods DLC, or if you are on console, you will start with 5 tents in your inventory. That means you are going to have to save up $176,000 of in-game currency to purchase the additional 11 tents if you don't already have them. There are no outlooks that will be close enough to use during this grind, and the hike up the mountain can be long, so before you even begin, I will caution having 16 tents is a must. I only take 2 rifles with me during the Great One Tahr grind. Now, Tahr are a class 4 species, so any of the class 4 to 8 rifles would make a good choice for your grind. You could go with the Zarza 308, the 303 British, or even the M1. For this grind specifically, I'm using the Hansen 30-06 as I feel its recoil management and follow-up shot is second to none for that class. I typically use this weapon for all diamond potential Tahr, as well as any rare Tahr that I may find to get the full integrity score and medal for those harvests. The second rifle I always take with me is a class 7 to 9 rifle, like the 300 Magnum, the Sarugi 338, the Valgarda 375, or my favorite, the Arzenia 300 Mag Tactical. I use the Arzenia on all shots except the diamond potential or rare animals. The reason being is that it's time efficiency. Because it's a larger caliber, it tends to drop them sooner and leads to less tracking. You do not want to be tracking your kills up the mountaintops. Of course, you don't get full integrity, and you also don't get full XP or cash for your kills. Collars. The Himalayan Tahr does not currently have a collar, so you don't need to worry about that one. Last piece of gear you will need to take with you are hunting stands, which helps to reduce hunting pressure and not risk deleting your zones. You can use tripods or waterfowl blinds effectively on the mountaintops. I prefer tripods on this grind as it gives you better elevation, which is sometimes needed to help spot Tahr who may be 250 to 300 meters away and could be hidden beside some of the greenery. The Tahr home range on Te Awaroa is very simple, with the 2 mountain ranges being the places you want to begin your search for the Tahr. They tend to feed out in the open in the grassy green and darker backgrounds on your map. I've highlighted the areas where I have personally found Tahr on my map. However, I will state that everyone's map is a little bit different, but this will give you a great starting point on where to begin your search for the Himalayan Tahr. Finding zones for Tahr is a bit different than finding them for animals that have a drink zone. For efficiency, I wanted to set up scouting tents on the mountain ridges that overlook the grassy areas at the top of the mountains. This map shows the red dots where you could place tents and the yellow paths that you could take to scout for potential zones. Once you are on the mountain ridge, you can run up and down the ridge like a little path and scouting with your binoculars the areas that look like Tahr would want to feed in. They do feed in the same areas as chamois, so if you do see a chamois, it is a good sign that Tahr may be nearby. If you hear a Tahr warning call or you get a fleeing indicator, then I would just go into that direction and try to pick up the need zone indicator that's there so it's on your map. Once you have your scouting tents set up, then you must choose what feed zone time you want to grind Tahr in. I personally chose the 7 to 11 a.m. feed zone time as it's the only one that has 4 full hours. The other available times are 4 to 7 a.m., which will be in the dark, 14 to 17, and 17 to 20, which will also be in the dark as well. Once you pick your ideal feed zone time, I would suggest setting the clock to 1 hour before their feed zone time ends. This should ensure that they are in their zones, and you can just fast travel to each tent, glass the area all around, do a little running and scouting, and move on to the next location, and rinse and repeat this. You can do this until you find at least 25 zones, because when you start actually harvesting the Tahr, I found that while I was moving and collecting my harvest and taking shots, I would spook and find additional zones that I did not spot before. Before you begin to move your tent around and set up your grind to start harvesting all these zones that you have found, you should know that there are 3 types of zones that you will find for Tahr. The first zone type is solo males. When you harvest a solo, the zone will become deleted and you will have to rediscover the zone once he respawns. For my grind, I decided to only harvest solo males if they are level 4 or 5. I left all solo males who were level 2 or 3 alone, as I believe they will not impact your herd management. The second type of zone is the mixed zones. These zones usually have 4 to 6 females with 1 to 3 males. These are zones you are going to want to become your exterior zones. You will want to try and shoot the males down to level 2. The reason for this is because I find that mixed zones, their respawns are not as consistent, especially the ones that only have 1 male. I have found that a few of my 2 male mixed zones can be consistent, so just pay attention on how well they do respawn as you're starting to do your grind. The third type of zone is the one that you want to pay the most attention to, and it's the all-male herd zone. These are super consistent for respawns. Usually there are 5 males, and what I have done is I tried to manage 3 of my 5 males to level 2. That leaves 2 males that you can harvest that should be at least level 3, 4, or 5 on every rotation. Also, by having at least 2 level 2 Tahr in the herd that you will not shoot, will guarantee that you won't delete the zone. If you shoot a herd zone down to 1 male without giving it enough time for the respawns to come back, you will break the zone and it will become a solo zone. Now that you know the 3 zone types to look out for, you can then set up your map to begin rotating on your herds. I would prioritize your all-male herd zones first for the setup, as those will be your main zones. I would start by going to the zone and where the Tahrs will be feeding. I did this so I could look around and find the best place to place my tent to get the clearest shot for my rotations. I would then put a map marker 250 to 300 meters away and then run there and set up the tent there. You have to work that way, as the tent placement and visibility can be tricky on the mountain faces. I would then place a tripod as close to the tent as possible as well. That should leave you with roughly 5 to 6 tents left to set up on your mixed herd zones. As you shoot down those males to level 2, you can then pick up the tent and tripod and move on to the next mixed herd zone. You will find that 1 or 2 of the mixed herd zones that are very consistent that you can set up and have them as your main zones, because your main goal should be to at least have 12 main zones at the end of your grind that you can consistently rotate on and end up grinding with the big level 3s, 4s, and 5s as your shooters. Tahr are a class 4 species and go to a max level 5. Due to their horns, it's really hard to judge their weight and score, so to make my grind easier, I just shot all the level 3 and higher and left all the level 2s on the map. The odd time that one of my all-male zones would become all 2s, I would shoot 2 of them with the highest weight estimate, and usually they came back as a level 3 or a level 4. There is RNG involved, which is random number generation, so sometimes they will respawn smaller. Keep that in mind. Here are a few tips that I've picked up so far in my grind. If you find that one of your zones isn't respawning, just skip it for a few rotations and come back to it. Sometimes mixed herd zones can be wonky and not come back as frequently as the all-male zones. Don't be afraid to change your tent placements and play around with your tripod locations. I frequently would switch up my placements just to get the best shooting lanes as well as be in the best position to hit follow-up shots. Pay attention to what direction the herds flee in. I find that 90% of the time that they spook in the same direction. This will allow you to know where they are going to be able to hit a quick follow-up shot on a second male Tahr. On the river, there will be about 4 zones. I have 3 all-male herd zones here. The best way to find these zones is to run the area at the end of their feed zone time and pick up their indicators. Then you can later set up a tent 250 meters away and walk in and scout the zone. I've set up a tent across the river to the east of the bridge, and I can shoot across at 2 of my all-male herd zones. I just set up a pickup tent on the other side, and this makes claiming the harvest much faster. As you can see, I fast travel over and I'm able to quickly run and claim both of my Tahr harvests with ease, because these zones otherwise would be really hard to shoot as they are in the wooded area. Here's a map that I've highlighted in yellow all the feed zones for Himalayan Tahr that I have found during their 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. feed zone time on my map. There was a couple of zones that are further away from what I expected their home range to be, like the zone in the northern part of this map that's really far east and at the tip of a ridge. You may or may not have zones near where I have zones, because every map is different, but this will give you an idea of where I found all of my zones, as well as what areas you can expect to maybe find some of your Himalayan Tahr in. At the time of editing this video, I am 700 harvests into my Himalayan Tahr Great One grind. I must admit that this has been one of the funnest grinds that I have done in my years of Great One grinding. Once I got the hang of it and I worked out all the quirks with the respawns and what zones are working the best, it has become very smooth. So far, I've spawned in 17 diamonds, and one massive diamond that had a trophy score of over 107. I've been having really good luck so far with the trolls, as far as I'm concerned, because I was only able to spawn in 9 trolls. And what I've been hearing around the community is that I'm hearing it's more like 50-50 that you're going to get a diamond or a troll. But I am super happy with how the herd management has been working so far, as I'm spawning a max weight level 5 every 25 or so harvests. I was able to spawn in 2 rares so far with this awesome level 3 albino that you saw earlier in the video, as well, that has a 1 in 2,000 spawn rate, as well as my new favorite trophy of all time. I was able to get my first ever super rare diamond, White Tahr. I was so surprised I didn't even know it was a diamond. White Tahr have a 1 in 1,000 spawn rate. That's it for this Great One Tahr herd management grind guide video. I really hope it gets you to try grinding Tahr and really helps you spawning some really cool diamonds and rares along the way. If you have any questions about Tahr grinding or herd management, please leave it in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, as it really helps get the channel out there for other hunters like yourself. And for more Hunter Call to Wild content, you can always subscribe to the channel. And as always, fellow hunters, happy hunting.